When you were 8, a summer could feel almost endless. The first week of school seemed large enough to contain an entire story. Birthdays approached with the speed of distant planets. Then adulthood arrived, and the calendar appeared to change its rules. Monday becomes Friday before you have fully noticed Tuesday. January begins, and suddenly someone is discussing plans for December. You look at an old photograph and realize that 5 years have disappeared. The clock did not accelerate, but your experience of time somehow did. Why can a childhood afternoon feel longer than an adult month? Why do boring minutes crawl while busy years vanish? And is growing older really the reason, or only part of the reason? Psychology does not offer one master clock hidden inside the brain. It offers several processes that create different versions of felt time. To understand why years feel faster, we must first separate those versions. Researchers call one experience the passage of time judgment. It is the feeling that time is moving quickly or slowly right now. Another experience is prospective timing. That happens when you know in advance that duration matters. A third experience is retrospective timing. That happens when you look backward and ask how long something seemed. These judgments can disagree with one another. A vacation can fly while you are living it and feel long in memory. A repetitive month can feel normal each day and nearly empty afterward. This difference is central to the mystery. The question is not simply how fast time moves. The question is what information the mind uses to judge its movement. Sometimes it reads attention. Sometimes it reads memory. Sometimes it reads expectations, emotions, and the structure of events. Age does influence some judgments, but the effect is not absolute. Mark Wittman and Sandra Lainhoff surveyed 499 people from age 14 to 94. Older participants tended to describe longer past periods as having passed faster. The clearest age differences appeared for broad periods such as the previous decade. Age explained only a modest part of the differences between people. Two people of the same age can experience a year very differently. A teenager living through routine can feel time racing. An older adult entering a new chapter can feel life becoming spacious again. So age is not a switch that permanently changes the speed setting. It changes the conditions under which attention and memory operate. Begin with attention to the present moment. When you monitor time closely, intervals often feel longer. Waiting for a delayed train gives the clock most of your attention. Every minute becomes visible. The same thing happens during pain, boredom, or uncomfortable uncertainty. There is little else competing with the clock. Now imagine becoming absorbed in a demanding activity. Attention moves away from time and toward the task. Fewer mental resources remain available for monitoring duration. 2 hours can seem to collapse into 20 minutes. This is one reason enjoyable or absorbing moments often feel fast. But enjoyment is not the only cause. Pressure, multitasking, and constant interruption can also make a day disappear. The mind keeps changing targets before it forms a stable picture of the interval. At night, the day feels both exhausting and strangely short. Fast felt time can therefore mean engagement or fragmentation. The clock alone cannot tell you which one occurred. Emotion can also change which moments receive attention. A frightening second may expand while a joyful evening seems brief. Later, memory may preserve the intense event more clearly than the ordinary one. Felt time is constructed once during experience and again during recall. Attention explains minutes and hours better than it explains disappearing years. For longer periods, memory becomes the more important witness. The mind does not store every day as a complete recording. It compresses repeated experiences and preserves selected changes. Think about driving the same route to work for 6 months. The first journey may contain dozens of noticed details. You learn each turn, sign, building, and dangerous crossing. By the 100th journey, the route can run almost automatically. The distance has not changed, the amount of newly encoded information has. When you later remember those months, many journeys share one memory template. The calendar contained 120 working days. Memory may return only a few distinct scenes. A period with fewer retrievable changes can feel shorter in retrospect. Psychologists describe experience as being divided into events. A new location, goal, person, or activity can create an event boundary. The brain updates its model of what is happening at those boundaries. Boundaries help organize continuous life into memorable units. A day containing many meaningful changes can leave a rich structure behind. A repetitive day may leave only one broad label. Recent experiments with naturalistic videos support this connection. People remembered whole events as longer when they recalled more sub-events. The remembered structure mattered more than a perfect count of tiny details. This does not mean that more memories literally create more time. It means memory supplies evidence when the mind reconstructs duration. A year with many chapters offers more evidence than a year with one repeated page. That is why novelty matters, but the popular explanation needs care. New experiences demand more attention because the brain cannot predict them easily. They also create distinctive cues that are easier to separate later. Childhood naturally contains an unusual concentration of first experiences. The first classroom, first friendship, and first independent journey need new models. Adults possess templates for situations they have encountered many times. Templates make life efficient. They also allow similar episodes to blend together. Efficiency saves effort in the present, but can compress the past. Routine is therefore not an enemy. Without it, every ordinary action would require exhausting concentration. The problem appears when routine removes nearly every meaningful boundary. Weeks become difficult to distinguish from neighboring weeks. When the mind searches the period, it finds repetition instead of landmarks. The result is the feeling that the period vanished. Another popular idea says each year becomes a smaller fraction of your life. At 5, 1 year equals a fifth of everything you have lived. At 50, 1 year equals only 1/50th. The comparison is intuitive and mathematically neat. But neat mathematics is not the same as a tested psychological mechanism. The fraction theory predicts acceleration without explaining how the brain measures that fraction. It also struggles to explain why one adult week drags and another disappears. Treat it as a useful metaphor, not a complete answer. Age changes more than the denominator of a fraction. Adults often carry more recurring obligations and fewer externally imposed firsts. School once divided life into new teachers, subjects, terms, and holidays. Adult life may use the same desk, route, and responsibilities for years. The environment provides fewer automatic landmarks. Time pressure can add another layer. When every day is organized around the next deadline, the present becomes a corridor. You keep moving toward what comes next instead of encoding what is here. A recent brain imaging study adds an intriguing possibility. Researchers analyzed 577 adults between 18 and 88, watching the same short film. Older brains tended to remain in stable neural states for longer periods. Successive neural states were less sharply differentiated with increasing age. This could mean that the brain marks fewer internal transitions during the same experience. Fewer transitions could contribute to a more compressed memory of time. But the study did not directly prove why years feel faster. The researchers measured neural patterns during an 8-minute movie, not entire decades. The finding is a clue rather than a final solution. Subjective time emerges from attention, memory, emotion, expectation, and life structure together. No single theory owns the entire phenomenon. Can you make life feel slower without becoming bored? You cannot command the clock to change speed. You can change the evidence that attention and memory receive. The first method is to create meaningful boundaries. Divide a long project into chapters with visible endings. Mark the beginning and completion of each chapter deliberately. A year containing finished chapters is easier to reconstruct than one endless task. The second method is to introduce manageable novelty. You do not need to move across the world every month. Try a new route, skill, conversation, place, or type of problem. Novelty works best when it is meaningful enough to be remembered. Random stimulation creates activity, but not necessarily a coherent memory. The third method is to recover attention from fragmentation. Choose moments when one activity receives your full focus. Absorption may make the moment pass quickly, but it can leave a clearer event behind. Constant switching can make both the moment and the memory feel thin. The fourth method is to record ordinary life selectively. Write one specific detail at the end of each day. Name the conversation, discovery, difficulty, or small change that made the day distinct. A short note can become a retrieval cue for an otherwise compressed week. The goal is not to document every second. The goal is to preserve a few useful landmarks. The fifth method is to protect experiences that carry personal meaning. Meaningful social interactions often form stronger chapters than another completed checklist. Give those experiences a beginning, enough attention, and a clear ending. Then allow yourself to recall them before they disappear into the next demand. Reflection helps separate one chapter from the next. None of these methods will make every day feel like childhood. Childhood was not slow only because it was magical. It was slow partly because life was dense with learning and change. Adulthood can recover some of that density without rejecting stability. The strange speed of time is not evidence that you are failing at life. It is evidence that the mind is compressing experience according to its own rules. Repeated pages become one chapter. Distinct chapters remain easier to see. You cannot add hours to a year. You can add boundaries, attention, novelty, and meaning to the hours already there. A full life does not require constant excitement. It requires moments that do not all collapse into the same memory. The clock will keep moving at exactly the same speed. But the life remembered behind you does not have to disappear so quickly.